Hey, everybody. It's great to be back with the episode 3 of Breaking Glass podcast with Compass Datacenters, and we are introducing the topic of where tech and healthcare meet with LaShonda Anderson-Williams, who is Senior VP of Healthcare and Life Sciences at Salesforce. Hey, LaShonda, how are you doing?
Hello, Nancy, and thank you very much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege, and what a great topic that we're all living and developing literally real time, where technology is how it's affecting healthcare, and all of us are in this great opportunity to reshape the future, what healthcare is going to be in the future.
I'm super excited about this. You and I had a little pre-conversation, and I know this is going to be a very engaging topic. I would love it, though, LaShonda, if you could just give us a nice overview and bio of your career, which is so fascinating, and I think our audience would love to learn from that.
Of course. Well, a small fun fact is when I graduated high school many, many years ago, I decided I wanted to be a nurse. And the single reason of that decision was based on the fact that I live in the area of Houston, Texas. I saw an article in the Houston Chronicle back when we used to read the paper that there is a huge sign-on bonus for nurses. So I ended up going to college to be a nurse, only to find out that my fear of needles didn't quite well play in the curriculum that would be needed for nurses. And so my counselor guided me to the business school, and thankful for that because I ended up graduating with a business degree. But it's really been fascinating that my love and passion for health and that aspect of how to help people and how to really help understand how to improve the lives of others. I went on to work for a technology company called IBM way back in the day, and that was really the start of my career in learning how to bring technology to the forefront of customer conversations and specifically how to help people reach their goals. And so through my time at IBM, almost 10 years, I had the honor to work for many, many great leaders. I worked there and then left to go spend the next 15 years of my career with a company called Microsoft. And it was quite a bit of a transition, leaving IBM, who was known for being best in class, and then moving over to Microsoft, who at the time was really moving into a place of wanting to support and really focus on enterprise level customers. And the last 3.5 years of my career at Microsoft, I fell in love with the opportunity of healthcare and technology. And so I had the honor of helping be part of a core leadership team to build a vertical focus for Microsoft, which is primarily focused on a lot of products that most of us have known and loved. But it really created a conversation for the company to think about how do we develop purpose-driven solutions and really help our organization intersect where tech and health can actually improve the quality of care. But at the end of the day, we wanted to make sure that we had a role in helping save lives. Fast forward to 5 months ago, I left Microsoft after 15 years, and I've since joined Salesforce. And we are at a very similar place, but I think a very exciting time. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, we saw many of our friends and families and those around the world impacted by the pandemic. But at Salesforce, we're really committed to making sure that we're bringing the right solutions and developing capabilities for healthcare providers, including pharmaceutical companies, to help bring modern medicine to the world with the sole intent of helping save more lives. So it's been a journey from I wanted to be a nurse, didn't really like needles, and now yet I fell in love with this idea of tech and healthcare and helping our customers really make a difference in the world globally.
That is so fantastic. I'm just amazed at how advanced the technology in healthcare is. But I do have to say, LaShonda, I feel like the audience probably doesn't know how amazing it is. Like they maybe aren't understanding where we are on the cutting edge and how technology actually does intersect with healthcare, and in particular, due to the increased remote working and through the pandemic, just really, where we've, I think it's accelerated, a lot of the ideas and the innovation and the disruption. And I would just love for you to talk a little bit more about that.
I mean, we would not have ever imagined a world, I believe, today of how we're operating. And most companies that are even not in the healthcare sector have to think about health. But all of us are working remote. All of us have had to buy new cameras for our computers and new lighting to make sure that we can see each other well. But the same has happened in healthcare. A lot of the employees of those organizations actually went remote. And you still, though, had to require the need for healthcare technically in an office, in a hospital system. And the notion of what we've probably considered as possibilities of getting care from home, or now there's a new term called healthcare at home, was an idea not necessarily probably acceptable by most. And now that has actually become the reality for many people, because we ran out of, healthcare systems ran out of beds. They ran out of space actually taking patients. So being able to engage with your medical provider, being able to access your medical records, being able to be diagnosed potentially virtually, trusting that diagnosis, and being able to be engaged with a healthcare system remotely was a thing that we probably thought was, years from now we'd be accepting. And today we're actually experiencing this notion of telehealth or virtual health or healthcare at home. And it's proven that the technology has always been available. The security of your patient data or health records are absolutely secure. But it is a transition in terms of how we require care. And I'd say, Nancy, it's something that's also generationally, I know I can speak for myself and my parents, it's a new idea, but the generation of today, the folks that are graduating outside of high school or college, this is the norm for them. They've always had a computer in their hand. And so getting care virtually or in a telemodel is not such a difficult thing. And it actually increases the speed of care, while not necessarily impacting a negative side of quality of care. And that is most fundamentally, I think, important, that people can actually get serviced, if you will, and get seen by their physician much faster to help them with issues they might have.
Yeah, when we were talking yesterday, this is just mind-blowing to me, because I hadn't really thought about how normalized this is becoming, and in a very accelerated fashion. I'm here helping out with my folks, and my dad's 90. And so far this week, we've had 2 virtual appointments, one for, his cardio doctor and one with his audio doctor. And it's so cool to see him engage and understand and learn, and I don't know, just really the patience everybody has to just really figure stuff out and not have to be present, because, during COVID, it was very difficult for that to occur. And especially, with, someone who's aging, it's harder to get around. So I was really, really excited to see that. And I never thought I'd see my dad engaging with technology in that manner. So I have another question that I know is going to go off onto a whole nother tangent, but honestly, I want to know a little bit more about the career planning, and how it's impacted women in the remote workforce, through this pandemic. It's really like, how has that career planning changed in your mind?
Yeah, the fact still stands. Most companies would probably appreciate and acknowledge that we need to do more for women across technology, in thinking of things in terms of roles around STEM. But we need to improve opportunities for all employees, but women specifically have continued to be challenged. A lot of women have left the workforce. You think about, thankfully, in some cases, my kids are older, so when this happened, think about the mother who might be single, or the father in some cases, but a mom who is single, or a mother who has a job, and they have to do school remote. Not every school reopened. Some schools went virtual the entire time. So now you're working from home. You're having to make sure your kid is on a social site or some type of virtual site to get education. And you're responsible for also being physically, potentially in an office if you're a first responder. And so that has actually had a huge burden, I think, on women in their careers, in trying to balance out being a mom, having a career, and doing it all. And that's been much more challenging than it ever has. And trying to make that trade-off, some people have elected to leave the entire workforce versus try to balance out, because it is overwhelming. So I think, that's a decision that many are still, in some cases, probably still trying to decide. But being remote in itself, how do you stay engaged with your leadership team? How do you think about career progression in some cases? I myself, starting a new company after 15 years with a company and relationships and networks I had, I've never had to onboard remotely. So the other part of that is we also see major shifts that it is I think, a talent war today, where we've got great talent in the marketplace, especially women, and especially women early in their careers. And they are looking for new roles, they're looking for new challenges. And a lot of, I think, folks are looking to translate maybe different experiences into new disciplines. And so I think there's an opportunity, but it's also a huge challenge of returning back to the workforce. If you're deciding to exit the workforce, or if you're thinking about changing your career in totality. And we saw a lot of that, I think, across healthcare and other verticals. It's a huge opportunity, but has been very, very challenging to navigate. In upward mobility in traditional models, I think we're seeing a drastic change on what it really takes to get promoted, what it takes to maybe explore diversity of experiences within an organization. But it's an important topic that every company should be thinking about, because women make up a huge amount of our world, but a small amount of the STEM and technical roles across the company. And that's an area we must all improve on.
Yeah, this. So I took away three main things from what you just said there, LaShonda, and there is a huge compelling business case, on top of just the, that it's the right thing to do, because we are missing out on a huge amount of talent with the female gender, mainly because, as we pointed out there, you've got issues like the primary caregivers and how challenging that is when daycare is, not open, or schools aren't open, and it falls on the women primarily, right, wrong, or indifferent. We also have the fact that, when you're in the workplace, right, it's like you advocate for those the best, and it's harder to get to know the folks you're working with if you're in a remote location. And you just mentioned that, with the whole onboarding, it's not impossible, but a little bit more difficult, right? So that face-to-face can matter as well. And I also think that I speak a lot about the digital divide, and the digital divide affects women greatly, especially women, kind of in the middle-aged group, when it comes to digital literacy, and then also access and tools. And I would like to know, how you feel the digital transformation has impacted this career planning and all of the topics that we just covered, about how it's been a little bit more of a strain, actually quite a bit more of a strain on women through this pandemic.
Yeah, I think while it's been challenging, and look, I think it's going to continue to be a challenge. There's a lot more we have to do, but I also think there's a huge opportunity. And I think companies like Salesforce, Microsoft, and others have went on an intense focus on helping bridge the digital awareness and what I call readiness of the future of what technology really is going to be, and the role it can play. And examples of that is, at Microsoft, we had a huge effort around providing free education, training. And there was a goal, I think, to educate at least 25 million people. Like, there's this huge, uber big goal through LinkedIn. Salesforce has a platform called Trailhead, and it is basically an ecosystem of many, many tools and certifications and trainings that you can do, and some at no cost. And so I think what I would say is, as many of the challenges that you just articulated that we have dealt with and will continue to deal with, there's also an opportunity, and I think an inflection point, for us to spend time investing in ourselves. And more companies are realizing, to recruit top talent, or recruit diverse talent, you have to bring something to the table. And a lot of these companies are bringing the opportunity to help educate or retrain in these new technical fields and markets. And that's an opportunity for us now. If you're looking to make a change, or if you're early on trying to figure out what's new. In tech, there is so many different roles, so many different opportunities, but really key in on, this is all about a journey and constantly learning. What we knew 12 months ago has changed. The world as we knew it, 24 months ago, has drastically changed. And so I think we're all in a place where we must leverage what's available today, but also invest now for what the future is to come.
Yeah, that's very, very well put. I do see it as an opportunity too. Even though we've seen the statistics and how, the pandemic has impacted women, I look at this as a shame on us if we don't really take this opportunity and really make a difference, right? So I love getting excited about that. I do feel like there are some practices that we could all be doing in the STEM industries that could definitely help make us more inclusive and more diverse. I know for one, I'm in the construction industry, and work building data centers, right? And I've been looking very hard at incentivizing our contractors and our supply chain to become more diverse, and really spelling out what that business case looks like and how the impact on all, the economic health of, our country and the world will increase greatly if you can offer more opportunities to women. And like on the construction side, as an example, let's have some PPE that's made for women. Let's make sure that we have facilities that are made for women and that we can welcome them instead of making them feel like they have to fit in to into these roles that, that are different for them than everybody else. So we really are looking at ways to incentivize and encourage, including things like, doing things in offsite environments that, honestly, both men and women enjoy, right? And make the commutes and the days easier for us to be able to provide care for our families, regardless of whether they were a male or female. So I would love to learn, LaShonda, if you have any tips of the trade or practices that you know of from the ginormous firms you've been with, that could actually help bridge this gap.
Yeah, I mean, I think the word I would use, Nancy, and you kind of nailed it. It's inclusion. One, being inclusive in everything we do. There's two sides to the coin. One of the other examples you just gave, which is, making sure that everyone's included in, maybe sessions or offsites or events that we can all sort of come together. In the past, there was this notion of going a happy hour, and, if you had a family or if you had some other challenges where you could not participate in the happy hour, potentially at a bar, you would go home. You were invited, but you kind of knew you probably wouldn't make it. And so you kind of went home and you wonder potentially what the conversation was, or was there a deal getting done, or what was the discussion? Well, now most companies have really realized the fact that even with the challenge of things like being on a Zoom call or a Google chat or a Teams call, these sessions are even more important. One, because people feel alone. When you're remote, you're not in an office, you're not connected to someone. And so this is a way to bring everyone, inclusive, if you will, in an environment where we can connect, we can engage, we can collaborate. It's also created a bit of a phenom. And, I don't know about you, but back in the day when we did go into the office and my kids were younger and I was on a conference call and I would be picking them up from school, I'm like, I'm on a call, don't say anything. And the kids kind of knew I gave them the look. I'm like, no arguing, no pinching each other. Just let me take my call, and everyone is silent. Well, now you see kids coming on camera with their moms and dads. You see the pets joining in. They don't care that you're on a Zoom call. My mother's coming to the office. I'm, doing something. She's like, hey, I could go out. I'm like, Mom, I'm presenting to a customer. Doesn't care. So, and more of our customers and the rest of the world saying, you know what, that's okay. We now get to see who people really are at home, and we kind of get a different perspective of who the whole person is. So I think that is actually a positive, as nervous as that might make us at times, that we have to show up and be so uptight and so, restructured and everything must be perfect. The fact is everyone's figuring this out. And I love for myself seeing my employees and leaders when their family comes on, because I get to see a little bit of them and I get to see them let their hair down, and customers alike. We're all figuring this out. So I do think there is, a challenge, but there's also an opportunity of being inclusive, being intentional, and making sure that people bring more than, we do these calls with more than just, let's talk about the business. Let's have a time to check in. One of the best practices that I try to do, and I've used in the past, is before we start a call, like you running a business, there's a set of metrics, and I have financial accountability to the business. But what I would start a meeting off with is just a 2-word check-in. Check in. What's happening? How are you feeling in the moment? And, you get people say, I'm happy, I'm excited. And some people say, I'm nervous, I'm anxious. Well, what's going on? And so getting people to sort of to connect on a different level beyond just we're here to run the business, because we get that, but connecting with people on a whole nother level, I think this has actually opened up to foster more inclusion, more intentional engagement amongst all the employees and our teams, and also addresses the fact that we don't get to see each other. I've not met one person on my team that works in my organization, but I feel like I know them. I know their kids because I get to see them. I know who's playing soccer. I know who has a tournament. I know who's planning a surprise party for their parents. And we would not in the old way probably have gotten to this point this fast, just because we would have been on train, planes, and automobiles. So as much as a challenge it is for women, I think companies can be much more intentional in being inclusive and being intentional about engaging all communities to make sure that everything's on a level playing field.
Oh my gosh, that is so fantastic. I was actually just thinking, because I think what you're describing is kind of the organic conversations that happen when you can spend time together, but kind of really prioritizing those things like, let's check in with you. We do this on our ELT calls where we say, from a cultural standpoint, a professional standpoint, a personal standpoint, where are you? Are you at a, check, a check plus or a check minus? And do you have any color you want to add to that, right? Just so that we are all, feeling, connected to each other and kind of knowing if someone's going through a hard time. So I think that is outstanding advice. And I really do love the concept of making this kind of organic conversation more intentional and getting to know the whole person, because it'll just make such a big difference from that inclusive standpoint going forward. And with that, we've really covered a lot of ground here, LaShonda. I just want to know, like, is there a topic or anything that you wanted to bring up before we close, or a message or takeaway or call to action or anything like that that you'd like to, kind of, lay out there for our audience?
The only thing I would say, Nancy, is one, we need all, but especially our women to be in a place where they know that there's opportunity, and we need, especially our younger, earlier in career talent, we need them in the marketplace. We need them starting businesses. We need them leading businesses. We need them challenging businesses. And we need our men, our peers, our counterparts to really make sure that they are, continue to be more thoughtful and really be more inclusive. And I look at this from an aspect of being a mom. And I know some of the leaders on my team, they look and say, I've got daughters. I want to make sure that they feel like they can reach the stars and the moon. And to do that, we have to be more intentional. We all have biases. So let's just make sure we acknowledge, and some of us have unconscious biases. And so making sure that you, as a leader, that you're acknowledging that there may be times where you're not as aware as you want to be. Ask the question. Leave the organization in a place where they feel comfortable to be transparent. We can have open conversations about tough maybe topics, but the women in the organization need to be supported, and they also need to know that the leadership we actually want them to stick around, and we need them. And we have a place for them to bring their whole selves, the mom, the wife, the sister. We play so many roles. But really make sure that we are opening up opportunities for them to continue to be their very best so we can bring our best to work every day.
That is a fantastic advice to close with. And I so appreciate you coming on Breaking Glass and sharing your wisdom with us, LaShonda.
You bet. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. And I can't wait to hear the next session, the next speaker. So I appreciate this opportunity, Nancy.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. So awesome meeting you virtually, and I hope someday to meet you in person.